Please join me in welcoming Attorney Raul Torres.
So first I want to acknowledge the people in this room who have dedicated themselves, their lives, their energy, and their passion to trying to lift up the most vulnerable members of our community. I am privileged to be here and think, quite frankly, that we haven't done nearly enough to lift you up, to support you, and to widen this effort into a movement to transform not only this community but this state. I am troubled, however, that I have woken up again in my hometown to learn that yet another child has died, a child who was born drug addicted, a child who was sent home with parents who were clearly not capable of caring for that child, and in a state that frankly has failed. Not failed politically, not failed in terms of policy. This is a moral failure. And that moral failure has led to a moral injury. An injury that will transform the lives of not only those parents who will be held to account inside the criminal justice system, but the moral injury that is visited upon all of us by being deprived of the promise and the potential and the gifts that that little boy could have given to all of us. And that is the heart of our challenge as a community and as a state. I began my career as a violent crimes prosecutor in a small town. And because I was looking for trial experience, I volunteered for cases that other prosecutors didn't want to touch. And that meant child abuse cases. And so I have seen the impact of a failure to invest in families, of a failure to invest in vulnerable communities and in generations of New Mexicans who have been the victims of abuse and neglect, who have lived in the homes of addicted parents, and without help, support, and intervention will pass that trauma from one generation to the next. When you're talking about adverse childhood experiences, you're talking about an epidemic of violence and neglect that not only leads to poor education outcomes and healthcare outcomes, it destroys lives. And until the leaders of our state place the issues of these communities and these families center and above all of the other policy demands that we face as elected leaders, we will continue to fall short. For those of us who are always wondering why New Mexico doesn't seem to be capable of achieving its full potential, it's not for lack of police officers, it's not for lack of funding, it's not for teachers who are not dedicated to their children, it's for lack of the moral courage to invest in the people who need it the most, and the willingness to hold leaders to account when they fail to uphold the most important oath that we take, which is to speak out for the people that can't speak for themselves. Whatever time I have in public office, the commitment I have made is to remember the faces of the children that I met in the courthouses of New Mexico and do everything in my power to make sure that future generations don't meet prosecutors like me. And I view that as not only the key to our success as a community, but the key to making us whole as human beings and to fulfilling our promise to one another. And so I thank you for this work. I wish we were doing more to support you, and I cannot think of a more noble path that you've taken in this life. So thank you for being here, and know that you'll have a supporter in me and everything that I have to give to this fight, because there's nothing more important. Thank you again.